We are Hatfield Defence, and our aim is to remove the physical and educational barriers to recycling, to create clean and safe streetscapes, all in defence of the informal waste pickers of Hatfield.
Meet the team.
Hi, I'm Nicola.
Hi, I'm Leandri.
Hi, I'm Ivan.
Hi, I'm Chloe.
And I am Magdalena.
Okay, so after reviewing existing literature and government reports, we came to the realization that only a fraction of all solid waste in South Africa actually gets recycled. The majority of waste gets processed by the existing municipal system, which is very linear in nature. The result being that the majority of solid waste ends up in landfills, which has horrendous social and environmental implications. From the little that actually does get recycled, we know that the formal sector is making contributions in terms of recycling drop-off points, buyback centres and reverse vending machines. However, its impact is still relatively small, especially when compared to the informal sector and waste pickers specifically, as they are the ones making the largest contribution towards recycling and promoting a circular flow of solid waste through the different stages of collection, sorting, and generating an income from all of that waste.
Who are the waste pickers? A waste picker is an individual not formally employed who deserves more governmental recognition. They make a living from collecting, sorting, recycling and selling discarded household or industrial waste from waste bins, dumpsters, waterways and landfills. Recyclable wastes include cardboard, paper, plastic and e-waste, which are sold to a private sector or a middleman who weighs and buys the goods for a mutually agreed upon price. Society benefits from waste pickers because they are sometimes the only form of solid waste collection. They achieve 80 to 90% of paper and packaging recycling rates, and they reduce environmental impact. More than 90,000 waste pickers are foraging our streets. The South African Waste Picker Association has more than 1,000 registered waste pickers from all 9 provinces.
In terms of addressing the current state, the current existing hierarchy of the system places waste pickers on the bottom, making them the somewhat invisible waste defenders of Hatfield, when in fact they do most of the heavy lifting with regards to recycling. What our strategy proposes to do is flip that triangle upside down, placing the waste pickers on top and making them the defenders of Hatfield. In saying that, though also wanting to create more of a relationship between the formal sector, buyback centres and waste pickers, creating space to be held for the waste pickers in the system.
On to mapping and analysis. As discussed during the studio presentation, the mapping process started with us mapping Hatfield's waste landscape for the University of Twente using EpiCollect. On this map, we can see the distribution of trash cans and litter incidents throughout the Hatfield precinct, and that there are areas in Hatfield that have many bins and hardly any littering, and others with fewer bins and lots of litter. For example, both the University of Pretoria campuses, outlined in blue, and the Hatfield CID, outlined in orange, have well-functioning waste management systems, enough trash cans and not much litter. Here we have a heat map showing only the littering incidents throughout the precinct. We were interested to know if there's a relationship between the littered areas and crime in Hatfield. We spoke to the CID and they highlighted the streets in Hatfield that are considered problem areas in terms of crime and safety, indicated by the dotted line. From this, we could tell that there exists a link between the littered and disorderly areas in Hatfield and safety on the streets. This observation aligns with the broken windows theory that claimed that crime emanates from disorder like vacant buildings and littered streets, and that if disorder were eliminated, then serious crimes would not occur. Since only 13% of solid waste in South Africa gets recycled, we knew it was important to understand how the recycling system in Hatfield functions. We will first look at the formal sector, which consists of recycling drop-offs and reverse vending machines, and then the informal sector. These are the locations of the recycling drop-offs and reverse vending machines, as well as the areas that are within 5 minutes walking distance from the spots. Here we show the taxi drop-offs and bus stops. From this we can tell that although there are some recycling drop-off spots and reverse vending machines, the existing ones do not sufficiently service the area, especially for public transport users and pedestrians. We also investigated the condition of the recycling drop-offs and noticed that most of them were at churches or schools hidden away behind fences due to security concerns. As a result, the Hatfield recycling drop-off spots are inaccessible to the public due to fences. and as a result, less solid waste is recycled and more ends up in landfills. We then investigated the informal recycling sector and discovered that the informal waste pickers typically first take the collected recyclables to their compounds. Thus, it is important to know where these compounds are. From the map, we can see that all of the sorting compounds we know of are located between 5 and 15 kilometers from the Hatfield precinct, which is very far to travel by foot with a plus-minus 200 kilogram trolley.
We have identified challenges of informal sorting compounds that informed us of our design interventions. As waste pickers are not classified as an official occupation, they often do not have legal land to sort waste. This results in them often picking secluded locations such as behind the trees to sort their waste. As it is an informal sorting ground, the place has no proper infrastructure, such as water and electricity, leading to poor working and living conditions. With waste pickers, not all waste is sellable to buyback centres. Leftover wastes are often just thrown out and piled up on the compound itself, forming an illegal landfill over time. As waste pickers' houses can be far away, they often need to sleep next to the waste to ensure its safety. As it is not a formal sorting compound, there is no sorting facilities. Though it is also important to note that the waste pickers do not want to be formalized, as they have their own systems to follow.
From their compounds, the waste pickers have to transport materials to buyback centres and recyclers indicated in blue and green. This displays the great distances the waste pickers have to travel between the Hatfield precinct, their sorting compounds, the respective buyback and recycling centres, and landfill sites. To conclude, we can tell that the informal waste pickers are the defenders of recycling in South Africa, but that they are subject to very harsh conditions, and that much more can be done to advocate for and defend our defenders.
On to the next section, having a look at a case study. We looked at Singapore's Zero Waste Master Plan, where they are proposing a pneumatic waste system, in which waste goes through different points of disposal and gets channeled through an underground network of pipes to a central waste handling facility. From there, a truck comes to collect the compacted waste and transports it to the recycling facilities. Although their master strategy states that it won't interrupt their waste picker economy, we found that this wouldn't be appropriate in our context, as it would enforce the existing waste system hierarchy.
So instead of underground waste tunnels, as seen in the case study, our strategy involves flipping the triangle by means of introducing a network of dignified waste picker lanes. These lanes then lead to not a centralized, but a series of decentralized sorting and compacting centers, scattered throughout the precinct. We specifically looked at existing vacant land in already activated spots in order to integrate the waste pickers into the existing cultural landscape. Okay, so our strategy will play out as follows. Step 1 is where household waste will be collected by waste pickers. Step 2 is where the waste generated by our stakeholders, the University of Pretoria and Hatfield CID, will also be passed on to the waste pickers, based on the mutual agreement that the waste pickers will do their sorting at the provided sites and not next to the roads. Step 4 involves the decentralized sorting and compacting centers, and as the name suggests, waste will get sorted and compacted on these dignified and legal sites. Step 4 is where we really switch up the existing process, since the recyclers and buyback centers will actually have to come to the different sorting sites and buy the processed waste directly from the waste pickers, thereby eliminating the need for the waste pickers to travel inhumane distances by foot every day. Step 5 is then where the processed waste gets transported to the recycling facility, and from there it ultimately ends back into the commercial loop. So we've considered this strategy through the lens of systems theory and propose a synthesis of the various components of recycling in Hatfield, all by prioritizing the humane and dignified working conditions of the informal waste pickers, since they are the ones doing most of the heavy lifting. Speaking of humane working conditions, we looked at the existing streets, especially in an area where crime and litter reports intersect. So what we found was that cars are prioritized over pedestrians, buildings are completely fenced off, and that waste picker infrastructure is basically non-existent. So what we propose instead is to remove these fences, or in other words, to defence the street interface and to create a sense of shared public space by means of introducing pedestrian and waste picker infrastructure. In that way, we're creating a series of spatial thresholds instead of like a super boring and flat fence line. So this intervention basically acts like a buffer zone and creates a sense of thresholding between public and private life. The activation of these streets will also improve passive surveillance and thereby counteract the manifestation of the broken window theory, where litter and crime intersect, as illustrated in our mapping analysis section.
Our strategy can be applied on Burnett Street. We chose this site to indicate its relationship with the bio-waste green corridor. It is close to the CID and it is an active area of Hatfield. We investigated the existing fence conditions on site and found that existing fence conditions barricade circulation to the borders only. Our proposal is to defence Hatfield by introducing a fence system allowing interactive circulation in and through Hatfield's fabric by means of 4 spatial typologies. First, versatile pods in empty urban nooks. Second, activating vacant land sites. Third, improving existing fences. And fourth, the building's facade becomes the fence.
The first tactical intervention we've considered is a kit of parts that is developed into pods, each with a different use that are waste picker specific. These pod typologies include repair, a space for them to feel integrated by giving them a space to repair their trolleys or whatever needs be. This could be integrated along street edges and in unactivated nooks. Seating, an in-between resting or refreshing spot placed along waste picker routes and can be used as public furniture. These could be integrated along the public street interface. Sleeping, a comfortable and safe space located in more private fence edges to have a much needed rest or break. These pods would be integrated at service edge punctures and more quiet edges or nooks in more private areas. Ablution, an in-between pod placed along their routes to be able to freshen up and make the waste pickers feel seen and cared about. These can be integrated in service edge nooks and pockets that allow for privacy. Storage, also placed along waste picker routes to be able to store their things temporarily as they move along. These can be placed along public street interface for easy accessibility.
As aforementioned by Nicola, we have identified vacant spots within Hatfield that are activated to integrate into the urban fabric. This vacant spot is located on Burnett Street, between a gas station and Studio Burnett. The site forms part of our Hatfield defense strategy to empower the waste pickers through spatial justice with decentralized sorting centers. Our design is based on 3 main functions that each serves the waste pickers and the community. The sorting compound, by providing the waste pickers a safe and legal land that can be maintained by the CID with proper facilities. The courtyard acts as the main central part of the site. Waste pickers can bring their own collected waste as well as deposited waste by the local community to sort. Storage to allow the waste pickers able to store their waste at night and not needing to keep their waste in the sleeping area for safekeeping. Deposit comes from the community, where they can deposit the recyclables through a main facade, providing the waste pickers with additional income. This will be explained next. Rebranding. Through the community engagement and celebration of waste pickers, the stigma is eliminated. Donations from the perspective of communities to donate their waste to the waste pickers through the facade. The community can physically see how much recyclables they are donating and knowing that they are directly contributing to the income of the waste pickers. The facade acts as a fence, but as well as a form of engagement. The act of giving and taking between the waste pickers and the communities bridges the gap between the two and allows socializing. As the facilities act as an anchor for the locals to come and donate waste, the local community are able to talk to the waste pickers as they pass in and out of the sorting center, again, bridging the gap. Resting place. By providing the waste pickers proper facilities with water and electricity to ensure the waste pickers are not being exploited, it allows them to regain their role as a member of society. Through repair, these workshops allow waste pickers to fix their trolleys and the waste bags. Materials and tools can be provided by the CID, as well as protective clothing. Uniforms can also be provided to give the waste pickers a sense of identity. As waste pickers' homes can be far away, providing accommodation in the center allows the waste pickers to not have to travel far distances, as well as allowing them to remain within the center of the precinct. Pods can be integrated into the sorting center for multi-purpose usage, providing additional repair spots and sleeping areas. Our design is based on the progression of privacy, with the main facade being the main interaction between the community, waste pickers, and the most public. This is how our principle is integrated into our design. And as aforementioned, our design is based on the progression of privacy. The main facade is the main interaction, and as well as a dedicated entry lane for waste pickers to bring their own collected waste. An open lane that doesn't hide the waste pickers from the public eye. The community deposits waste through the facade. The facade is built with a transparent material, each color-coded based on which recyclable to be deposited. Descriptions and icons are also imprinted on the facade to further enable the users to figure out how to recycle. The facade is transparent, allowing the users to see how much waste there is and how much they're depositing. There's a solid wall behind to give privacy to the waste pickers, but doors allowing the waste pickers to bring out the waste once it fills up. The waste pickers can sort out the waste in the courtyard, in private and without disturbance. To the west of the courtyard, storage facilities allow the waste pickers to store their sorted waste that are not yet ready to be sold out to buyback centers. At the back of the center, the most private, is where the accommodation is located. Repair facilities, where waste pickers can repair their trolleys, waste bags, and their clothing. The CID can provide necessary materials, as well as protective gear and potentially uniforms to provide identity to the waste pickers.
We know that the proposed sorting centres doesn't exist in isolation, and that it's also important to consider the comfort and ease at which waste pickers move to these centres. That's why we're also proposing 2 different instances of pedestrian crossings at the outlined spots. The first instance is at a 4-lane road intersection where cars will be bottlenecked in order to decrease speed, promote the use of public transport, and to increase pedestrian safety. The second instance is on a 2-lane road. What we try to show is how the pedestrian and waste pickers are prioritized, since their walking plane remains level, while the cars have to slow down in order to cross. You might be asking yourselves, how does pedestrian lanes and crossings improve the circularity of solid waste? And to that, our answer will be that it optimizes the working conditions of informal waste pickers.
We are showing our strategy in a more private context. A proposed green alley branches from the main buyer corridor, Burnett Street. This divergence creates more intimate human-nature relationships between buildings. Empty spaces become activated when introducing multi-purpose urban furniture and pots, while accepting the waste pickers' gold as part of the system. Moving from a busy street deeper into alleys, nooks fabricate spatial opportunities for waste pickers to find shelter to rest. Not only does horizontal circulation transform into more private retreats, but vertical circulation as well. Upcycled construction waste is used as building materials. The defenced intervention morphs from stepping planks to seating to lighting to pots. This multi-purpose strategy guides waste pickers along safe routes that integrate parking for their trolleys. Service edges are activated while green buffers ensure pleasant smells.
So Magdalena showed how our strategy might manifest in private areas and nooks, and we also considered how this strategy might look in a public street interface. Looking at Park Street, it was clear that waste pickers had to work in inhumane and often dangerous conditions. By defencing Hatfield, our aim is to spatially integrate waste pickers into the urban fabric, providing them with dignified lanes and various facilities that might meet their needs on their daily journey to the sorting centres.
So in conclusion, we are moving from the current state of an imbalanced hierarchy, with waste pickers at the bottom of the triangle, to a target state of decentralized sorting facilities and defencing Hatfield Street interface, all in an effort to move towards a future vision where the hierarchy is flipped, placing waste pickers at the top as the main defenders of solid waste recycling. This has been the Solid Waste Group. Thank you for your time.